Hi, my name is Jacob, and welcome to another episode of Raw and Uncut on the Abrasive Conversations platform. Today, in this particular segment, I briefly want to talk about whether our president, Cyril Ramaphosa, should resign. And I'm posing that particular question: should President Cyril Ramaphosa resign? So there's, I think, four debates or four pockets of debates that is currently taking place. For example, there is people who are making a political argument. Some are making a legal argument. Others are making a moral argument, and some are making an economic argument. So I briefly want to go into each of these debates and just give my take on some pointers that might help us South Africans to think about it. So the first one I want to focus on is the economic implications. Should President Cyril Ramaphosa resign? And the first thing I noticed when the report was released is that the markets went haywire, and the South African media chewed it up. It shows that rand is plummeting. The economic is going to bits and pieces. So, and that for me was interesting, that the first response that came from the media and that type of sensationalizes was the economic argument or the economic implications. Of course, there would always be economic implications when it comes to politics, especially at the highest level of politics, where the president of a country is implicated by some sort of scandal. I want South Africans to just think about a couple of months ago, Britain went through the same type of crisis. Boris Johnson had to step down, and subsequently there are two prime ministers. So in some cases, the markets responded quite well. In other cases, the markets sometimes respond very badly. So in the South African case, it didn't respond well. But wherever there is uncertainty, especially political uncertainty, then we'll see some level of market response. So what we experienced when the report came out is it's quite how would I say, it's quite expected. That is what you expect from a market. The market would react. But that doesn't mean when the market reacts like that it's endorsement for President Cyril Ramaphosa to stay. So this brings me to the second debate or implication that is currently happening in the South African politics is the political argument. And this is dominating especially the ANC, the organization. So there's a lot of pushback within a party, or pushback and push for President Cyril Ramaphosa should resign and step down. So for me, that's interesting, because what some people might remember is that what is facing President Cyril Ramaphosa is also something that faced President Zuma and also President Thabo Mbeki. Now, if you as old as me, then you would remember that President Thabo Mbeki in 2008 was recalled, and President Zuma was recalled in 2019. So not 2019, in 2018, President Zuma was recalled after the elective conference of the ANC in 2017. So in both instances, there was court cases or they were legally implicated. For example, President Thabo Mbeki was implicated by, I think it's Judge Nicholson's verdict saying that he politically interfered in the whole Zuma issue, and that there was a political campaign against Zuma, and President Thabo Mbeki is implicated. Now later on, President Thabo Mbeki took that case to court. He won the case, and it was a biased ruling. And I'll get into that just now. But in both cases, it was politics that changed the president. But what we have to remember is that in 2007, President Thabo Mbeki lost the presidential election against President Zuma. So President Zuma was firmly in power of the ANC when they asked him to step down. Now the same thing happened in 2017. President Zuma couldn't stand for a third term. Dlamini Zuma ran as an opponent to President Cyril Ramaphosa, and the RET, or the so-called Zuma faction, then lost the elections in 2017, and what we see is that President Cyril Ramaphosa then came to the fore and firmly took control of the ANC, and since then he was on a mission to kind of have a party renewal, but also speak against corruption within the party. And strictly what kind of the resolution that was taken at the conference is that if you implicated in any sort, then there will be a call to step down. So it's interesting. So there's push for and against within in the party. So and it's quite normal, because we're en route to a new elective conference of the ANC, where they will determine who is going to be the next president and the deputy president of the ANC, but also the secretary general, treasurer, and so forth. So it's also, so whichever caucus is going to win is going to be firmly in control of the party. So this is where the political part now comes. If President Cyril Ramaphosa is resigning before the elective conference, he might just lose or give up power too quickly, and the opposing faction might just take over the ANC. And if that happens, then he's firmly out of the politics in the coming years. So from a political point of view, then it would have been the best thing is to hold on to power while you have it. And this brings me to the third implication, or third debate that is currently taking place, is that and that's the legal argument, where some legal experts came and said the panel or the report, the evidence that was presented as hearsay evidence. So this is not evidence that would hold up in court. So if this is evidence that cannot hold up in court, then the report kind of misleads the broader society, but it heavily implicate not just the ANC or President Cyril Ramaphosa, but also the country. It's a good argument. People who brings this argument also forward, saying that the advocate that was part of Ace Magashule's case was part of the three members of the panel. So they say that the panel had it in for President Cyril Ramaphosa from the beginning. So that's the legal argument. Even Prof. I think Thuli Madisela came out and says that evidence needs to be tested in court. So if evidence is not tested in court and it can't hold up in court, then you cannot use that as a basis to draw up a kind of legal argument, or even ask or suggest that the president should be impeached, because there's no real evidence in this particular case yet. So it's only when this case is going to the courts that we'll really start seeing the evidence coming out. And if some of phrases suggested or affidavit, if there is enough sufficient evidence that have a case against Cyril Ramaphosa. So that's the legal argument. So the final implication or debate that is currently happening is the moral debate, and this is where I am more leaning towards, is the moral debate. When should you do the right thing, and what should you do in terms of cementing your legacy? So if you would remember, in 2008, President Zuma sent a group of ANC heavyweights and to ask him to step down as the country's president. At that time in 2008, it was unprecedented. It was in September. And in the South African Constitution, there is no such thing as where a party can recall a president, even though you are cadre of the party, you cannot recall. You can only either resign or you have to be impeached. So there's a whole democratic process, and it's built into our constitution. The solution then is that the resignation was on the table. At that particular point, President Thabo Mbeki, he shouldn't, or he didn't had to, or he didn't need to resign. He still had a majority of cabinet members, and there was a lot of people loyal within the ANC parliament, or the members of parliament, that would have voted for him if the case went to an impeachment case. But this is where the moral argument comes, is that he stepped down. He said, comrades, I'll respect your decision and I will resign as the country's president. And what that decision proves is that his legitimacy over the past decade just became stronger and stronger. There's so many skeletons that came out of all of the other political leaders that was part of that cabal that asked him to step down. But the one man's kind of legacy that is cemented in post-apartheid South Africa is President Thabo Mbeki, because what he said is, I would step down, I would do what the movement asked me to do, and I will let the people in the long run see what is happening. And I think this is where President Cyril Ramaphosa also have to kind of think what is his legacy, because he doesn't really need the money. He's a rich man. He doesn't need the money or the salary of the president. So he clearly doesn't need this money. He doesn't even need the presidency. But in troubled times like this, when it comes to South Africa, what is some of the moral or the good or bad choices that you can make in terms of the country, in terms of you personally? Holding on to power might be in the best interest of the country at this particular point, but is it good for your legacy? So this is where then the moral codes are clashing with one another. Would this be in the best interest of me? No. So why am I doing this? So it's a difficult situation for him at this particular point, because he came to us with thuma, mina and a new dawn, and now that he's faced with those heavy decisions, that is thuma, mina and new dawn, that he said he is doing completely the opposite. And whose interest that is at this particular moment not clear. Now, he can still rescue the situation. I think if his caucus win the elective conference of the ANC, then he can step down as the country's president and give it to a junior or next person to lead the country up until his name is cleared. And hopefully his name will be cleared before the 2024 elections. And if his name is cleared before the 2024 elections, then he can stand again as the president of the ANC, and not the president of the ANC, the president of the country. What that then means is that he would have cemented his legacy. So that's one way out of this particular situation that he currently finds him in. But I have to say, we as a nation are getting used to it, that the presidents are asked to recall, step down, so it's quite normal. And every time this happens, the rand and the economy fluctuate. So it is becoming something normal and something that we expect. So that president was already set in 2008. So, but it doesn't mean that this doesn't weaken our democracy. Our democracy is weakened through this particular process. So I think, and this is a conversation for another time, is that we have to think about the electoral system and the political system over the next decade or so, because I don't think the proportional representation system is working, or the party and the parliamentary system is working. I'm leaning more towards currently giving where South Africa is towards a semi-presidential system. But that's a discussion for another day. So it does brings me to the end of this particular segment. What do you think should President Cyril Ramaphosa do? If you have a different idea, or you think one of these 4 options you're leaning towards, please share it in the comment section. I would appreciate it, and let's have a conversation. So thank you for watching, and until we see each other again. Bye bye.